Well, it's been a quiet week in Lake Wobegon, my hometown. Out there. Oh, they've had some beautiful weather. It's been so warm and sunny and just gorgeous. The beginning of spring out there. A lot of people have been out doing a little yard work the last couple of weeks. It's gotten up into the 60s. Several days. Not too much to you, but beautiful to them. It's like summer. Get out there and scratch at the dead grass and the pet manure out there. Just try and get something started. Father Wilmer was out in the garden, out behind the rectory, digging in the dirt there with a big spade, poking at it, wishing that he could get a rototiller instead of just digging at the dirt, but knowing how extravagant that would look to parishioners driving by. Parishioners see their priest out back, they kind of want it to look spiritual, you know. They want it to look biblical. See him with a hoe there, poking at the dirt like the apostles did in the New Testament. And it probably is more spiritual, too. Father Wilmer's sister, Wynette, she has a boy, a big tall boy with long, long hair. She's been trying to get him to cut, and he won't do it. And the other day, he said he was thinking about getting a car. She said, how can you get a car? You don't have a job to pay for it. He said, well, I was thinking of borrowing the money from you. She said, well, if you cut your hair, I might think about it. He said, the apostles in the New Testament, they all had long hair. She said, yes, they did. And everywhere they went, they walked. And it's probably more spiritual. It's probably more spiritual to walk, and get out there in God's beautiful world, and especially the part of the world that God made us from, which is the dirt. Mr. Berge is up in the cemetery decorating his father's grave, and there in the midst of where his family is buried under a tree, there on their graves, he found a beautiful crop of morel mushrooms all up there. He picked a bunch of them and brought them back home. People were just disgusted with him. They said, how can you do that? Eat mushrooms that come from the cemetery? He said, well, those people lived a long life. And if the point of it all was to become really good mushrooms, then it'd be a shame not to appreciate it. Anyway, it's been warm and sunny there, and this warm weather has sort of lent an air of pointlessness to Florian and Myrtle Krebsbach's leaving on a trip to Los Angeles. They came down here to visit their son in Pomona. Florian gassed up the car and checked the oil a couple of times and fixed a hole in the plastic seat cover and went into St. Cloud and bought a brand new suitcase, and they headed down to the cities to get on a plane to fly out to Los Angeles. Myrtle packed her quart or two of vitamins, including vitamin E, which she read an article about this a couple of weeks ago, is back on the hit parade, and the great things they used to think that it did, and then they decided it didn't. Now they think it does. To her, it's always been popular. The fountain of youth, vitamin E. Myrtle is pushing 70. Actually, she kind of has 70 surrounded, I think. And Florian is out ahead of her, and they hate to travel. They hate to go to the cities. They hate to drive on the freeway. They hate to fly. And going to Los Angeles when the weather is so nice is like having an affair with your wife. It isn't much point to it. But they took off, and people wondered why. Well, like so many other things that Florian and Myrtle have done in almost 50 years of their marriage, this all started with an argument back in January when she looked at him and she said, how come it is that we never go anyplace anymore? And Florian looked up from his magazine and he said, all right, we'll go. Just name the place and we'll go. Well, she glared at him. That's not how that argument is supposed to go. You're not supposed to say that. She's supposed to say, how come we never go anyplace? And he's supposed to say, never go anyplace. Why, we went to South Dakota just last summer. And then she's supposed to say, South Dakota, you call that someplace? And then they skirmish about that for a while. And then he says, you know, I just can't satisfy you. He said, I've been trying all my life to make you happy, and I'm no closer now than when I began. And then she's supposed to say, well, I just would like to go someplace now and then. I get tired of sitting around here and sleeping and watching television and cleaning the bathroom. It's all that I do. And then he's supposed to say, well, okay, we could go, but if we went, we'd just have a fight. And why should I pay a lot of money to go somewhere else to be miserable when I could be miserable at home? And then she's supposed to say, well, there's just no point talking to you about it at all. And then he's supposed to say, well, fight, 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 fight. That's all we ever do. That's all we've ever done. And then they sit, satisfied, happy, at having completed this classic argument, like somebody who just finished a Chopin etude. But instead, he took a different route. And he said, okay, you name the place, we'll go there. And just to spite him, she said, California, we'll go to Los Angeles and visit Wesley. And just to spite her, he said, all right, we will. So even though neither of them wanted to go, they had to come. They had to come, and he went into St. Cloud and he bought the brand new suitcase, big green plaid thing with wheels on it. You pull a handle, lead it like a dog. Now, they were going to go in March, but it took a long time to get in touch with Wesley in Pomona because he's been awfully busy. And then it was too late to get the Super Saver fare until April. Well, Myrtle said, go in April. It doesn't make any sense. We ought to be doing yard work then, not going to Los Angeles. Could spend a little bit more to go earlier. Wouldn't hurt. Florian looked at her. It would hurt a lot. She said, we might as well enjoy spending it while we're still around to spend it. Well, that's not Florian's philosophy. Florian can remember very clearly a time long ago, but not long enough to him, when he had no money at all and didn't know where to find any. And so every time Florian gets his pension check, he feels the life inside him rise, and he looks at the amount, $1,145, and he thinks to himself, now how much of that can I tuck away and never touch it again? 400? 500? Florian has always bought the cheapest thing all his life. His sons and his daughters and his wife have talked themselves blue in the face, trying to convince him there's such a thing as investing in quality and investing in having a good time. No, sir, always buys the cheapest. Well, they got in the car and they headed for Minneapolis to get on the plane to Los Angeles. They headed there at 45 miles an hour down the freeway, hugging the right shoulder of the road. And they drove down there, and they parked in the farthest lot from the airport. So far away you couldn't even hear the planes out there. But it cost $2.75 a day to park out there. They parked in that lot, and they had to wait an hour for a shuttle bus to come pick them up. But they were 3 hours early, so it didn't matter. They still arrived at the terminal with 2 hours to spare. Oh, they'd been thinking about this trip for days. He'd packed and repacked that suitcase for almost a week. And they walked into the terminal, pulling it behind them. 2 little people hanging onto each other tight, their eyes big. He kept checking his ticket. He was so afraid something might change. He'd make some mistake. But they got on the plane to come to Los Angeles, the 2 people hanging onto each other. And they came up the aisle of the jumbo jet and sort of jabbering back and forth to reassure each other, you know. And saying, you okay then? Yes, I'm fine. I'm just fine. What seat does it say we got there? Well, it says here we got 46, E and F. What seat is this over here? Well, this is 4A and B. Well, we got a ways to go. Yes, down here. It's down that way. What's that one over there? Well, that one's number 6A. Well, we keep going that way then. Slowly. Oh, they need a lot of extra time to board.